Some say the dead can't speak, but what if they never stop trying? A breath against your neck when you're alone, a name whispered from the dark that no one living should know, a door that creaks open even though it was locked. Behind every murder, every vanishing, every cold case gone silent, something waits. It doesn't sleep, it doesn't forget, and it doesn't always stay buried. These stories aren't folklore. They happened, and they still echo in blood-stained rooms, in abandoned woods, in the space just beyond the light. So close your eyes, and whatever you do, don't open the door. You're listening to Whispers After Dark, where the shadows talk and the night listens. In the shadowy prairies of post-Civil War Kansas, a patch of land known as the Osage Trail would become the setting of one of America's most chilling unsolved murder cases. This is the story of the Bloody Benders, Kansas's serial killer family. The story begins in Labette County, where a family of German immigrants, John Bender Sr., his wife Elvira, also called Ma, their son John Jr., and daughter Kate, settled in a one-room cabin and opened a modest inn and grocery store for travelers. To neighbors, they were strange but polite. To passers-by, they were forgettable. But beneath the surface, the Benders were anything but ordinary. One by one, travelers who passed through the area began to vanish. These weren't people looking to disappear. Many had families, business appointments, or neighbors expecting their return. One such man was Dr. William York, a respected physician traveling from Fort Scott. When he didn't return home, his brothers, Colonel Ed York and Kansas State Senator Alexander York, launched a private investigation. Ed eventually arrived in Labette County and questioned the Benders. Kate, the charismatic daughter known for holding seances and preaching spiritualism, told him that perhaps his brother had run off or fallen victim to bandits. But Ed had a feeling something was off. He left, unsettled, but with no proof. It wasn't until weeks later, when the Benders' cabin appeared abandoned, that townspeople dared to act. A search party entered the home, and what they found beneath the floorboards would leave the entire state in shock. Underneath a blood-stained trapdoor was a cellar soaked in dried gore. The smell was overpowering. In the nearby orchard, shallow graves were discovered. The first body was that of Dr. York, his skull crushed and throat slashed. As they kept digging, more corpses appeared, some whole, some dismembered, all brutalized. The Benders' method was horrifyingly methodical. A guest would be seated in the place of honor at the dining table, their back to a curtain that separated the room. Behind the curtain, one of the Benders would strike the victim with a sledgehammer. Once unconscious or dead, they would slit the throat and drop the body through the trapdoor into the cellar. Among the victims was George Newton Longcore, a widower traveling with his toddler daughter, Mary Ann. Both were found buried together. It appeared no one, not even children, was spared. In all, authorities uncovered at least 11 bodies, though some believed the true count was far higher. There were whispers that some guests were simply never found, their bones scattered or buried beyond the orchard. Despite a statewide manhunt, the Benders vanished. Some believed they split up. Kate and John Jr. headed south, Ma and Pa Bender to the east. There were sightings, rumors of vigilante justice, and even claims that some had been killed and buried by angry farmers. Yet no confirmed arrests were ever made. To this day, the Bloody Benders remain a terrifying enigma. Were they driven by greed, madness, or something darker, some cult-like lust for blood masked beneath spiritual mumbo-jumbo and family civility? Their cabin was dismantled. Nothing remains of the building now. Just open Kansas plains, and an eerie silence that settles over the land when the wind dies. Travelers who pass through still talk of a heaviness in the air, a sense that something is watching from the tall grass, and some believe the ghosts of the murdered never truly left. Some places don't just hold memories, they hold something darker. A silence too deep, a stillness that presses in like a warning. Not every house is just wood and nails, some breathe. Some remember. They remember the last screams that pierced their walls, the final breath of a child, and the heavy, dragging footsteps of someone who never left. And in a quiet town in Iowa, there's one such house where something unspeakable happened and never left. Our next story is about the Villisca Axe Murder House. In the small town of Villisca, Iowa, tucked between cornfields and the quiet drone of American farmland, stands a house frozen in time. Small, white, unassuming. But if you step inside, you might feel it, the weight of something wrong. It was June 10th, 1912. Josiah and Sarah Moore had taken their 4 children to church that Sunday evening. Joining them were 2 guests, Lena and Ina Stillinger, young sisters invited to stay the night. 8 souls under one roof. By morning, all were dead, bludgeoned in their beds with an axe. Their faces so destroyed not even loved ones could recognize them. Every mirror in the house was covered with cloth, every window veiled. The killer had taken their time, moved from room to room, slowly, methodically. One of the girls, Lena, was found lying across the bed, her nightgown pulled up, a defensive wound on her arm. Unlike the others, she may have awakened. She may have seen the shadow standing over her. The killer remained a phantom. Though Josiah's own axe was found in the guest room, caked in blood and hair, no fingerprints were ever matched. No stranger was seen fleeing town. No neighbor heard screams. And perhaps that was the most terrifying part, that 8 people could be slaughtered in their sleep, and the night stayed silent. Investigators found a bowl of bloody water in the kitchen, a plate of uneaten food. As if the murderer had lingered after the slaughter, cleaned up, and calmly sat down for a meal, then vanished into the night. Over time, suspects came and went. A traveling preacher confessed. A local man was arrested, tried, and acquitted. Rumors swirled of jealousy, secret affairs, and townsfolk who knew more than they let on. But the truth was buried with the Moors, and the house, it never forgot. Visitors today report cold spots that move with them, disembodied whispers in empty rooms, doors creak open when no one is near. And on some nights when the wind dies and the moon hangs low, the sound of children's footsteps echo in the upstairs hallway, even when the house is empty. Paranormal investigators have captured EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, crying out for help. Others have run from the house mid-investigation, claiming a shadow stood watching them from the attic, where the killer may have waited in silence for the family to fall asleep. One man, during an overnight stay, woke to find tiny handprints on his sleeping bag. There were no children in the house that night. And in 2014, a ghost tour guest stabbed himself in the chest in the very room where the Moors were killed. Later, when questioned, he said only 5 words, "The house told me to." No one knows who committed the Villisca Axe murders. No one ever will. But if you listen closely, the house might tell you. Because some homes, remember, have you ever heard of a place that was built for death? Something so evil that its presence still haunts the place it used to be? This is the story of the H. Holmes murder castle, a house that breathed death. And even though the walls have crumbled, the screams still echo. Welcome to the murder castle. In Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood, just beyond the glow of the 1893 World's Fair, there once stood a building unlike any other. It was designed to look like a hotel, but it wasn't. It was a trap. Built by a man named H. Holmes, it was meant to confuse, to disorient, and to kill. Staircases led to brick walls. Doors opened to nowhere. Some rooms were airtight chambers with hidden gas jets. Others had peepholes and chutes that dropped straight to the basement, where lime pits, surgical tables, and furnaces waited. It was called many things: a hotel, a boarding house, a pharmacy. But history would remember it as one thing: the murder castle. It rose on a quiet corner in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood, just before the 1893 World's Fair. Thousands came to the city for adventure, for hope, for work, and for many this strange hotel was their last stop. You see, the castle was a maze, designed by Holmes himself, built by workers who were constantly fired and replaced so no one ever saw the full blueprint. Staircases that led to nowhere. Doors that opened to brick walls. A room with no windows and no exit. Trapdoors. Peepholes. Gas lines hidden in the walls. This was not a hotel. It was a labyrinth of death. Holmes advertised for young women seeking work. He charmed them, promised them jobs, lodging, safety. Some were last seen entering the building. None were seen leaving. Inside the castle, Holmes had rooms he called the vault. Soundproof, airtight. He would watch from hidden panels as his victims screamed. Then, when the air ran out, he'd send their bodies down a secret chute to the basement, where a dissecting table and lime pits waited. Bones were sold to medical schools, teeth dumped in the furnace, flesh dissolved in acid. He turned murder into profit. It's unknown how many died in that place. Holmes confessed to 27. Some say the real number is over 200. He was finally caught in 1894, not for murder, but for insurance fraud. Only when police searched the hotel did the truth crawl out from the walls. Bloodstains, bones, a woman's shoe, a child's toy, the stench of death in the ventilation system. Holmes was hanged in 1896. It took over 15 minutes for him to die. He requested to be buried in a coffin encased in concrete, afraid someone would dig him up and do to him what he had done to so many others. But the castle, it lived on for a while. After Holmes was arrested and hanged, the building stood quiet, but neighbors said it was anything but silent. People reported strange cries coming from inside at night, long after it was boarded up. Footsteps were heard pacing, stopping, and then pounding against the floor. Some swore they saw flickering lights in the upstairs windows, though there was no electricity. Years later, when the structure was briefly reopened as a post office, employees refused to go into the basement. They said it felt wrong down there, like the walls were breathing, watching. A few claimed to hear banging from behind sealed doors. One janitor quit after saying he saw a woman's face in a wall, eyes wide, mouth open as if screaming. Then it was gone. One night, a watchman ran screaming into the street. He swore he saw a man with sunken eyes and a crooked smile walking through the halls. The place was eventually abandoned, then burned. Some say it was arson. Others say the building killed itself. Paranormal investigators who visited the site before its demolition described it as one of the darkest places in America. Not just metaphorically. They said the air itself was heavy, suffocating. EVPs captured voices pleading, whispering, some even saying, "Don't go down there." One photo taken near the old stairwell shows a blurred figure, a man in a bowler hat, standing just out of focus, but no one remembers anyone being there. In 1938, a fire consumed much of the building. The cause? Never determined. Some said it was vandals. Others believed the building wanted to be destroyed. Even now, those who visit the site where a new structure stands report cold spots, dizziness, and nightmares the same night. And some people claim they've seen a tall man walking the sidewalk late at night. Sharp features, hat tilted low, always watching, always smiling. Today, nothing of the original castle remains. Just the stories and the memory of a man who designed a building where death had keys to every door. Because maybe H. Holmes didn't just build a castle for murder. Maybe he built himself a throne. And maybe, just maybe, he's still there, waiting behind a door that never opens, in a hallway that no longer exists, where the dead still whisper and the walls will never forget. Because the murder castle may be gone, but what happened there never left. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Whispers After Dark, Disturbing Stories to Sleep By. If these stories sent a chill down your spine, comment below. Tell us about a story you would like to hear, and check out the other chilling videos in our channel. Make sure to subscribe, like, and tap the notification bell so you never miss what waits in the shadows. Until then, stay curious, stay cautious, and beware of the whispers after dark.